Hello, everybody, and welcome to this introduction and overview session for the CPF program, the Certificate in Python for Finance. You can read it here in the subtitle with a focus on asset management, algorithmic trading, and computational finance, and much more, I can say. My name is Yves. I'm founder and CEO of the Python Quants, the AI machine. And yeah, it's a pleasure. And I must say, I'm really excited to get started with the January cohort today with this session here. Yeah, without further ado, let me dive into the slide deck. I want to keep it concise and compact in that sense. We have that much packed into the program over the recent years. It's pretty hard to touch upon everything that might be relevant to one or the other of you. So I try to highlight a couple of things that I can imagine is important and of interest to most of you. So here the agenda for today's session. I will get started with the CPF program and a few details about it. Then a few words about myself. This will be the shortest part. Then a couple of words, ideas, and aspects of why Python in finance. Finance with Python and AI in finance. These are two classes and core topics in the program that I don't want to highlight because they are the most important ones. For some, this will be the case, but they are representative for so many other things that you will find in the program, right? Then the Quant platform, which is really your central resource for almost everything, meaning you find all the recordings of live sessions, such as this one on the Quant platform shortly after they have taken place. You find code there, Jupyter notebooks, the user forum, these days also a Python for Finance and CPF chatbot, which knows, quote unquote, everything about our program. So a wonderful addition, I think, to the resources that you find there, and quite a bit more, right? I have prepared a couple of examples. They are not meant to be any kind of instruction or teaching. They are just meant to whet your appetite for what to come later on. So they are really, let's say, code-based examples of what you can find in the program. Then a few words about the study plans. Usually we have the 16-week cohort, which is pretty structured, but you can go through the cohort with us based on a study plan like this that I'm going to show, or you can study self-paced as well. You have with our program the full flexibility. Then a couple of words about guiding principles. I will only highlight 4, which I consider the most important ones when studying with us here in the CPF program. I will show you a relatively new addition, quizzes and exercises that you find on the Quant platform. I will show you also the user forum with a couple of numbers and some examples. The Discord server is something that we've introduced a while back as well for everything that is organizational and administrative, if you like, or general. When you say, well, Python, finance, I've seen this here and there, and then you can discuss with your peers, with other delegates there. Find a project, plus also a link to the brochure, because today we not only have delegates that have already signed up to the program with us, we also have delegates, or potential delegates, I must say, which might not have decided finally. So all the resources for the two groups are structured in the way you see it here, and I dive immediately now in the CPF program part here. Yeah, the CPF program here, see the certificate, it's a 16-week program, but again, you can study this in the most flexible manner, I hope, at least. First of all, it is an online program. We have live sessions, that's right, but everything is recorded. If you can make it to a session, you will find the recording, let's say, an hour or two afterward, in general, on the Quant platform. Then you find a wealth of resources, like currently 330 plus hours of instruction. Probably it's already around 350 right now. Also 2,500 pages of documentation, primarily in the form of books, but also in other forms like HTML or documentation in the form of a Jupyter notebook. Speaking of Jupyter notebooks, there are more than 250 Jupyter notebooks that you find on the Quant platform that you have access to, that you can execute basically on the Quant platform based on Jupyter Lab, right, where you get access to an instance. And also some 25,000 lines of code. That's quite a bit. I like to say it's roughly, I would say something for a master's program, at least for a one-year master's program. But the expectation is not that you go through everything and every detail and then you are, let's say, quizzed about it at the end. It is like a menu from which you can choose, but there are a couple of core topics that everybody should study in order to make the best of the rest of the resources that you find there. So speaking of the resources, here you see an overview of the foundational classes and the applied classes. On the left-hand side, we have, for example, access to the bootcamp, which is as one of the things that you see here, and that's the absolute minority, also available on our YouTube channel, for example. Then crypto basics, Linux basics, mathematics basics, natural language processing, which will be one of the focal topics for the current cohort, which was, let's say, only a minor side topic in recent past. But of course, these days with the chatbots, GPT, transformers, generally speaking, this has become a hot topic, and in algorithmic trading and other areas in finance, this can be added to the mix of skills and approaches pretty beneficially. Python for databases, Python and Excel, financial data science, and we also have here a class, Python for finance basics. There is a new one which we did in the previous cohort, which is called, it's not even here in the overview, right? That's an example that is not to be found here. Therefore, I was saying we have now already more resources than what this overview chart says. It is in part redundant, but with the Python for Finance key skills class that you find on the platform, you have in any case access to that, you get a more compact, a more compressed version of what we do in other areas. So when you read, for example, 45 hours of mathematics basics, might sound not that much, but if you want to work through the different topics on the mathematical side, on the programming side, 45 modules, that's already quite a bit. The same holds true here for Python for Finance Basics. And with the Python for Finance Key Skills class, we have created yet another addition to bring you maybe even a bit faster, even up to speed at the beginning, if you want to do something like this. Again, many of these resources that I mentioned here or that I've mentioned before, they are not mandatory in that sense, they are optional, but we try to provide such a menu of options that make everyone not only happy, but also efficient and in the end, highly skilled with these approaches and topics. Reinforcement learning for finance, we have already quite a bit here, form of 15 hours as you can read here, but this will be another focal point because over the course of last year, I've been writing yet another book on Python for finance, generally speaking, right? It is called Reinforcement Learning for Finance, and we will go through these new materials with many new examples that you won't find in the previous classes here. So another topic that we will focus on in that cohort. So NLP, and that's by chance here, this was not intentionally, these two topics up here, they are really what we are going to focus on during this cohort in the form of the live classes. When I say focus, this is usually I'm let's say primed for the live classes and what is to be prepared, what is new actually, but of course everything else that I see here is still there, is relevant and important. AI in finance as a more general topic, of course, there and the integral, a core part of the CPF program, like Python for asset management as one of the core topics there as well. We have an algorithmic trading bootcamp, Python for algorithmic trading add-on, a practice module, Python for algo trading course. So in the recent past, still up until today, I can say that many of our delegates explicitly came to us to study Python for algorithmic trading, and this is, I guess, reflected here in the middle column here with the 4 blocks about the applied side of Python for finance, right? Financial packages, I've brought one example with me from this part, listed vol and variance derivatives, pretty specific in the computational finance part, Python for computational finance with DX analytics, and Python for computational finance, the core part here. about Monte Carlo simulation, pricing of European options, pricing of American options, pricing of more complex portfolios of these options, using numerical methods for more advanced models to do dynamic hedging, etc. So I know this might not be of relevance for everybody, but also, and I can say this is where my origin lies. I started using Python for finance with a focus on computational finance. And of course, still these days, that's a pretty important topic. Underneath here, you see finance with Python. I have a separate section about this because this is, how shall I say, this is at the core of the core. This is based on my book, Financial Theory with Python, which is the introductory book. You see the cover right behind me here. This is something that everybody, when I was saying, well, this is optional, this is optional, this is core, but this I would say is absolutely mandatory that you go through these 9 hours with the associated topics and the text that comes with it, because this will simplify everything else that you do later on, I think, to a pretty large degree. You see, there is quite a bit. Again, don't be afraid. You don't need to go through this over the course of 16 weeks, right? I wouldn't say that this is impossible, but that would at least require that you study full-time and focus really over the course of every of these 16 weeks on the program. And for sure, that's the absolute minority of those who attend our program, that they have really, I would say, the luxury to study full-time. Right? Like with many advanced degrees, people have other requirements to fulfill. Their daily work, family business, etc. Pay. So what other delegates say, I don't want to read this aloud, but of course you have access to the slide deck and you can read through this if you like. Of course, we are always happy to get good feedback, and I tried, of course, to get your feedback that I think is good and that is also relevant and also to a larger degree representative. So you can obviously form your own opinion. I hope it will be similar to what you can read here. A few words about myself, and I will really stick to a few words because here you have it to read for those of you who haven't learned yet about my background. You see here just the last thing that I added is reinforcement learning for finance that I'm in the process of finishing up. I hope by the end of the first quarter this year, I will have a complete draft. So over the last few weeks, I was able to make some decent progress here. Here you see the books to which you have access in electronic form via our CPF program as well. And when you've read before the 2,500 plus pages, so these alone, what you see here, are more than 2,500 pages. This doesn't include, for example, now the resources coming from the Reinforcement Learning for Finance book, the new one, right? So I guess we are somehow closing in to 3,000 pages in PDF form, although the Alpha Finance won't have 500 pages. But as I was saying before, there are other resources, obviously, to which you have access, which are not in PDF form only. So Python and finance, for most of you, this probably is a little bit redundant, but I like to revisit a couple of arguments and a couple of ideas and a couple of selling points, if you like, why Python and finance after all. And here you don't see my sales pitch. You see, if you like, the sales pitch by ChatGPT, which I prompted by writing explain why Python has become the #1 programming language in finance, provides 7 short bullet points. And as you might know, ChatGPT is pretty good in doing stuff like this. And I can basically agree. I don't know about the sequence. This is debatable. And if we could add a few more, but for sure, easy to learn compared to, let's say, C++. Versatile libraries. Yes, we have a ton of things, not only at the core Python installation or interpreter, we have a huge ecosystem. Probably I would, maybe I would put this equally on top here, like ChatGPT did. Data handling capabilities. For us in finance, of course, we are now required these days to deal with ever increasing data volumes, and that's of course a selling point. So Again, I'm not going through it, but I want to highlight here one element in detail: community and support. So with our CPF program, you're not getting access to these resources. You also have like our community, which for sure is a little bit smaller than, let's say, Stack Overflow, for example. But you get a community which is like-minded, of people, of delegates that are interested in basically the same topics that you are, that might be on a similar level on the learning curve, or before you, or a little bit behind you. And this is what community lives off, right? That those people work together, meet, actively engage with each other, and help each other out, right? So we, of course, are the primary supporters in all respects, be it on the Discord server, be it on the user forum. But of course, I'm always happy when delegates help each other, because helping somebody else out, as you might have experienced in your life, is usually the best way to learn something, at the core, if you like. Python and hedge funds, again, not going through the details, but data analysis, quant modeling, algo trading, risk management, data visualization, machine learning, web scraping. I mean, we could basically create one long list of these topics. In part, they repeat themselves, but I can also basically agree with the list here. Python for algo trading, I highlighted this before. Ease of use, we have read this, the versatility, speed of development, right? When you say time to market is what counts, not only maybe execution speed, then Python is hardly beatable by other ecosystems, right? This is here what speed of development is about. Integration capabilities, Python usually is not used standalone. It can be integrated with so many other technologies. That's wonderful, right? Open source, real-time data handling, of course, for algo trading, a very important point, and also one of the focal points in the algo trading part in our program. For computational finance, last but not least here, in this overview, efficient libraries, parallel processing, scalability, machine learning, flexible, dynamic, interoperability, and again, community and support, or as it writes here, community support. So I think many good reasons here to study Python for finance with the different focal points. Overall, I said that AI and now reinforcement learning, it used to play a role, but now even a more prominent role for this current cohort. AI is, quote unquote, taking over, like, as you can read here, business and in particular science. What this article from The Economist, a recent article by an economist, is about how artificial intelligence can revolutionize science, right? What is highlighted here is that primarily it depends on the people and their skills with regard to how far-reaching people are willing and able to use new technologies. And this is what our program is about, to enable you, to empower you to use these tools in the financial domain. Of course, there are many aspects, approaches, algorithms that can be transformed to other domains, but be assured our focus is on finance. And you only here and there will find a couple of examples which are beyond our financial domain. So data, of course, plays a role. And the conclusion here is finance today is A, data-driven, and B, AI first. There is no doubt about that. And our program, of course, takes all of this into account. For those of you who have not decided to join us yet, we have also a ton of resources in our YouTube channel. Of course, I'm always happy when people say, well, I found that much valuable information on your channel. I could do X, Y, Z because I was watching your bootcamp video or some other talk that I've given, for example, where I highlight certain topics. Of course, that's what we are happy about. In that sense, you find a small subset of a very small subset of what we provide in the program there as well. If you like samples or like these introduction and overview sessions, you will find there in recorded fashion. And you find talks and quite a few more things there as well. But everything that you find there is, of course, available to everybody. And we have most of that stuff on the Quant platform as well, meaning when you, and I will show you that, do a full text search, for example, on the Quant platform, it will also search, for example, over these videos. which is obviously a benefit, when this is included in your search queries, right? Now to the first topics, finance with Python. And this really is what I said, mandatory. You need to study this. You need to study this carefully. This is very important. Even if you might not get everything at a first try, you should revisit it until you have mastered and internalized that stuff, because this will pay off in every other class that you will be going through, right? And the structure of the class is prototypical. And by that, I mean that we have for that class a book, right? Financial theory with Python. Then we have, and you see here the screenshot in the middle, I will show you that on the Quant platform as well. Finance with Python, the title of the class. That's not in line here. The class always was called Finance with Python, but the book, this was driven by O'Reilly, was called Financial Theory with Python to emphasize a bit more what it is all about. And then you find different modules here with the recordings, plus Jupyter notebooks, plus maybe links to slide decks, or I don't know, Python scripts or whatever. Depending on the class, this might vary a bit, right? And you can, on the Quant platform itself, or if you prefer that, you can download the Jupyter notebooks, you can execute them locally, but something like here from Finance with Python from that class can be executed easily on the Quant platform. So you can basically get started working in the browser without even worrying about the local infrastructure and how to execute all of this locally on your machine, be it Windows or Mac OS. You find basically every detail that you need to know in order to set up your own infrastructure in the program in the form of our Linux Basics class, our Tools and Skills class, and in many other classes this is touched upon as well, right? So, but don't worry about that. And when you read stuff like Docker containers or setting up cloud instances, again, every detail is provided that you need. Not every detail that is out there about these topics, but every detail that you will need in order to set it up on your own. So when I go to the platform, I have it open here. So I'm logged in. See here, Eve, right? Basically, we have the dashboard. That's always the starting point, where you see here the latest videos. And these are the latest live sessions, and the last 3 are presented here. So I told you before that we did this new class, PFF Python for Finance. This is what it stands for, key skills. And you see here the reverse order. So the latest one is here, the first one, the second latest, and so forth. And I dive right now into this before moving on. So here also a highlight. It's here called a tooltip, or we could call it a highlight. This is all these days on our platform is GPT powered, right? GPT-4 powered, meaning we do transcriptions of all the videos. So for the first time in my life, I got a number for the number of words that I was saying. So roughly, that's an estimate. It's 2 million words that are recorded in the sessions, and the 2 million words from all the videos on the Quant platform are fully searchable. So this is what I mean by full text. And you see here, for example, with this Hoover effect, that this is a summary, right? This video in Python for Finance focuses on supervised learning and its applications in the field. It explains the difference between supervised and unsupervised, highlighting the use of labeled training data and supervised learning, etc. pp. So this is all done automatically thanks to wonderful programming capabilities. You see here, this is now a little bit longer. So in order to see it in full, I need to scroll down. Right here in this class, it was also about machine learning, unsupervised learning, where I used in that class PCA, principal component analysis. So you see here the summary. So without even going to the module, you see already, this class was about that topic, this topic, etc. And you can search it, I was saying before. And this is a major point these days, I would say, which makes the studying with our program on the Quant platform much more efficient, because people in the past were saying, well, I recall this one class where you introduced a new package to do X, Y, that. I'm simply not able to find it. I hope with the new technology now included, this is much, much easier. And when you go here, when I click on the header, like the blue link, you see I'm now in the key skills class part, right? Where for every single module, here you see the tooltip, you see the summaries, and this class now has, you have seen it before, 14, right? 14 modules. When you click here on the video, right, click on the video, it will start. So I will in a second hear myself. So now I can hear myself through my earphones, which is not basically what I want to do now. So you can get started watching it. You can also, here in the upper left-hand corner, write your notes, right? This is my first note. And you can also timestamp this, right? Here at the very beginning, doesn't probably not make that much sense. And I have, so when you go through the video, you can also delete it, as you can see here. Go through the video, you want to write something, make a marker. So we track, or the software, the platform tracks here, obviously, when, if you do timestamp it, you have done or created the note with a marker, with something that you want to look up, or a question that you might want to ask, right? So this is what this is meant for. And this persists, right? For your account, this persists. So if I create here this note, or you create, let's say, 25 notes for a single video, this will persist. And you can also then, again, full text search, including your notes, right? When you say marker XYZ and you look up in the search box marker XYZ, it will show you then where the note is. You can jump to the note, and if it's timestamped, you have the link to the video there as well, right? So it's again running, and I can hear myself. Closing it. You have also down here a link to a slide deck. I think that's self-explanatory these days, right? When I click on it, the slide deck that is used for the single modules accordingly can be opened immediately. Plus here, right, when I click once, it's not a double click, sometimes it might be a bit confusing, so no double click needed. I can here go and open the Jupyter Notebook on the Quant platform. So this is now not locally. You might have noticed before I have Jupyter Lab here running, but this is not related to the Quant platform. Here we are on the Quant platform, and most of the Jupyter Notebook, I say most, and this is due to technical reasons and issues, most of the Jupyter Notebooks can be executed here. So there might be sometimes issues with regard to the consistency of different versions, etc., right? Therefore, I say most, and not every Jupyter Notebook can be executed on a Quant platform. But this, for example, is a candidate, right? I can here go this through this Jupyter Notebook and right can execute it here. Or you would go, for example, and do a right click, and then you can download this here as well. One topic, and this was just recently again in the user forum that often comes up, we provide all these notebooks for everybody in a read-only version. So you will always have access to the original version of the Jupyter Notebook. In other words, on the other hand, I can say, you cannot override it here. So when I work something in that notebook, basically I can change it, right? Let's say here, so I have added some text here, right? I can do so, but you see here, for those of you who are used to Jupyter Lab, Jupyter Notebook, this is not saved yet. Otherwise, such a cross would appear. And when I want to go and, as usual, want to save it, you see this is grayed out. So I cannot save it because this is read-only, and Jupyter Lab recognizes that. But I can save a copy, right? I can say save notebook as. here, but I need to be careful. I need here to adjust the path as well, because these directories, they are all basically read-only as well. It's not the files, it's also the directory. So PFF key skills 14, and I can, for example, go to my root folder, right? So here it's just /14 PFF key skills IPython notebook, and I can now save it. And you see immediately here, instead of the circle, a cross appears, and now I have saved my file to the root folder here on Jupyter Lab. When I click here on the root folder, you see I created previously a copy for Python for Finance demo. You see here 4 months ago. That's quite a while back. I haven't deleted it. That's also a question that we often have. Oh, on the Quant platform, when I open and close Jupyter Lab, will the files that I personally create, will they persist? Yeah, they will persist. So they are stored in the cloud, they are backup, etc. You shouldn't use this to do, let's say, critical work, nor should you use this to share, let's say, company secrets or whatever, right? But here for the program resource, and when you do your exercises or whatnot, this is perfectly fine. And the notebook that I've saved is here just a minute ago, but you see that the one that I saved 4 months ago, it's still there. So in other words, the message is files that you save, that you create, are persisted. But of course, the usual caveats apply. You need to make sure that you not unintentionally, let's say, delete a file that you have created on your own. This is not backup. We back up all of this on a technical level, and in extreme cases, we could recover something. But again, use this as your sandbox and do the serious work on your own server, on your own machine, etc. So this all works, but there are a couple of rules, and I would say these are already the most important ones to get started with that apply. You can also here open a terminal, and on the terminal you can also do apt install and whatever you want to do, right? So apt, let's say apt install, we have so many things installed, nothing jumps to my mind. That htop for sure is installed, I would say, right? And here you see, but the message is you can install new stuff on a technical level. This won't persist, but you have the chance. You can also create new Python environments, etc. You have in your Docker container, which you work access on a system level, and can basically do everything that you want. But again, I repeat myself here, but that's a very important message. See it more as a sandbox and not something where you would do your critical work, where you need backups, etc. This is not what it's meant for. It is, I like to call it, an execution environment, not a development nor a deployment environment, right? So I can close that one once I'm finished, and here is Jupyter Lab, the typical things. I can shut down that one and leave the terminal, for example, open. So this is in principle how it works, and this principle applies basically to every of the classes. Right here in the main menu, I haven't even used the main menu, right, because I started on the dashboard, to which I want to jump back, but the main menu is accessible from any place. So here in the main menu, right, this is where I got deeper into the class, the module, and then to Jupyter Lab. You see here the books shown, right, where you can access with your personal welcome email. You have received the password for the books here. Then the classes, this is for sure the longest list here, right? It's a list version of the overview chart that I used before, right? So these are all the classes, and I wanted to focus, this was my jump off point from the slide deck, on finance with Python, right? On finance with Python. I see a little bit red, it's quite hot here in my office. And finance with Python, you have these 6 modules, right? Here, finance with Python 5 or 6, these are the final 2 ones, right? So give me maybe a Yeah, a total of 6 modules, and the structure and the usage is similar to what I was showing before, right? You have the video, you have the slide deck, you have the single Jupyter notebooks, right? And maybe here and there, let me check, no, for this introductory class, there are no additional resources like a Python script or a configuration file or something similar to that, right? But if there is something that belongs to the module, then you will find it here in the overview of the single modules. And that, again, I want to emphasize, is something that you should have a really careful look at and that you should study thoroughly, right? So in that sense, here all the, let's say, electronic resources in the form of code and video, plus then when you want to read the text here, financial theory with Python. Let's say you want to read first, or some people want to see the code first and then read. You type in the password and then you have access to the complete text of the book that accompanies this class. Or I could say the class is based primarily on the book. There are here and there additional examples in the notebooks or some live coding exercises, but you have in any case access to all the resources that are relevant, right? And as before, when I click on, let's say here, the first Jupyter notebook, which is relevant for this module, this now in the background, right, the behavior is a little bit different because I have opened previously the Jupyter Lab instance here, and this is now opened automatically within Jupyter Lab, the admittedly pretty short Jupyter notebook that we see now here in front of us, just a couple of lines with pretty simple introductory code. So this structure is a relevant one for almost all classes. Here and there are some special cases, but not that many, because yeah, the structure is what you will find mostly throughout the resources. Then we have the other class. So now, by now, you should know how this might look here. Artificial intelligence in finance. There is the book. There are the classes with the modules, video, links to slide decks, Jupyter notebooks, and you can execute them on the Quant platform, right? The specialty here, when I have the general header, artificial intelligence in finance, the specialty here is that we have a total of 24 modules, AI in finance. This makes up for 2 classes about AI in finance, plus currently 9 modules for reinforcement learning for finance. We will have in this cohort live sessions with new content for reinforcement learning for finance as well. So the Quant platform, now there is not that much more to say, but there are a few additional elements to the core resources that are really worth noting. You have seen it in action. You see here the dashboard with the latest videos. I have shown you the summaries for the different modules, right? You have seen Jupyter Lab in action. You have seen a book opened. You have seen the main menu. What I haven't shown you yet, because I have a separate section on it, is the user forum. So I jump to the user forum a little bit later. But what I want to show you here now, on top of the resources as presented previously, here to search, right? We have full text search, and when you type in here an example, I think I have a roughly good feeling of how many hits we get for different search queries, right? The query, of course, is up to you. I was searching here just for a package that we use in the Python for algorithmic trading part, right? And here it is TPQ-08. And I want to highlight here in front, you see a time stamp, right? 1:56:39. And it says here 4 search results. So I'm not showing all of them in videos. So this might indicate already that there could be search results in your notes or in other texts or whatever. But here it is in the videos, and the videos have these timestamps, and TPQOA is mentioned at this point here in the video, among other occurrences. And if you click on it, you can jump to it. I will show you this live. So here in another video, it is used as well. So this is on an overview level for a single video. Now I go, if you like, all in. Pandas as one of the most important packages is mentioned many times in different areas, classes, modules of the CPF program. And to see here the hits, and these are not even half of the hits for pandas in the Mathematics Basics 33 module. The first mention of pandas happens at 1 minute 1 second, 1 minute 11 seconds. So you see, right? Somehow I mentioned 2 million words spoken. Quite a few of them are pandas and NumPy, you can be assured. And here, obviously, among other things, this module focuses at this stage on the usage of pandas, and therefore we have, of course, a large number of hits here. So let me show you this as well, right? With that example here in the classes themselves, we don't have a search box, but on the dashboard level, that would usually, I would guess, your jump off point. You see right on top here, the search box down here. You can also search, and this is related, as the structuring might suggest, here to the user forum, where I said I'll show you this in a second. So you see two search boxes. That one is the general one. And when I type in now, maybe let's not use pandas, let's use NumPy. So the search takes a bit because it goes now over all the resources that are stored in the form of databases, full text, meaning the transcriptions of the videos. And you see no search results for NumPy in your personal node. So I obviously have never created a node which says something about NumPy. If you would have created a node with NumPy, or I don't know, regarding to usage or a question or a sub package, you will find it here. And then you could jump to it. 122 search results for NumPy in your videos. Oh my goodness, 122, meaning that out of the videos that we have on the platform, the modules, in 122, NumPy is mentioned. So as with Google, I would say this might be a little bit too generic a search, right? But I could go, for example, here. Let me show you that one, because this is again from Mathematics Basics. I have this screenshot from that class. Here, show 13 more, and now you see the complete list of hits for the term NumPy, plus always the context, right? The idea obviously here is that you will find the most relevant point in a video for your personal problem or question, right? And you see, right, we have installed NumPy, right? And this is all what I was saying. So that's the text that I was saying at this point here, 1 hour, 29 seconds in the video tools and skills 01 here in the Windows part, right? So full text search here, indeed, every spoken word, every written word is searchable on the platform. 122 videos. So just to show that indeed it goes over everything. And further down after the last video, this now obviously pretty long. I don't want to show. There might be other hits, for example, in the description of the modules, etc. So we show everything here. It's not structured like with Google, where you say, well, show me the next page, show me the next page, because in general, you won't have that many hits, right? When I go with another search term, which for sure will give us less, let's say Quant starts, one of the examples, that's a more, how shall I say, specialized Python package. Here you see, right, one search result for Quant stats in the personal nodes. So I have, here you see, like during a demo, this is my first node about Quant stats, and I see the hit here for the note, 6 search results in videos. So in 6 videos, that's a much shorter list. You see Quant stats, and here in the classes, that's the description of the module where you also see that hit, right? Full text search, finally achieved, check. And then we have, that's the recent addition, fine-tuned and trained a chatbot on the complete context. So that it's not only search, think Google, right? Google shows you the hits, web pages, you jump to it. And then think ChatGPT. Now we have something like ChatPFF, let's say. So we haven't given it the name. I call it usually PFF and CPF chatbot because it does not know things about Python for finance related to our program, but also meta information about the program, right? So when people in the past ask me, for example, something like this, which modules, oh, that's not over, this should read cover the NLP linalg subpackage, right? A pretty regularly used package in order to do linear algebra, right? Here, now you see the output of the chatbot. The context provided from the video segments indicates that several modules cover the subpackage, which is an essential part of NumPy dedicated to linear algebra operations. So you get background here, right? And then it shows you here below are the videos mentioned that likely cover the NP linalg subpackage. And by likely, here, pretty interesting, I think, but we are used to these chatbots and their perceived intelligence. It not only shows you now videos where NP linalg is explicitly mentioned, but it tries to conclude from the context that we do some linear algebra operation or whatnot to say, well, the context suggests that the module is used in this context. Maybe you want to have a look at it. And you see here for this package, it shows you 8 videos on our Quant platform where you will find something about NP, or where you probably or for sure, these are the 2 options, find something about the linear algebra package NP linalg, right? So for example, here, in chronological order, probably you would come along this first, right? Finance with Python 03. This is for next week, for the 2nd week in our program. Specifically states that the linear algebra subpackage is used for powerful functions like solve, which are applied to problems such as solving linear equations. This indicates coverage of NP linear. Here you see indicates coverage. And then you see also the text. I think this is really, when I said full text search was like a real kick upwards with regard to making your learning experience steeper and faster. I think this will be another kick in the same direction, because again, with ChatGPT you could ask also general questions, but ChatGPT does not know which modules in our program cover this particular topic. So we have here the full integration and the training fine-tuning on the content. Now a few examples, and I want to keep it short. I was saying before that this is not meant as an instruction. This is meant as an exercise in whetting your appetite and in showing you, and I mean by showing you, really showing you, not explaining in detail. You will notice that what we have in the program in the form of 4 examples. Financial packages, also a class that we added just recently last year. Natural language processing, I have a simple example here, which is another focal point for this cohort. Wanda trading platform, I know that many of you are interested in doing algorithmic trading. And last but not least, and I want to use this for a brief discussion about financial data and what you might need beyond our program, right? Because this is the only thing in part, and I can assure you, you won't need any external subscription. But I get the question so regularly, Eve, what kind of data subscription, data API would you recommend, which is kind of affordable for maybe not the biggest investment banks or hedge funds out there, but maybe even for a retail trader or a PhD student, etc. And that's the reason why I included it, because we usually work with fixed data sets that we retrieve from a server, and everybody works with the same data set. leads also to reproducibility in most instances. But of course, once you want to, let's say, backtest your own strategies or explore your own ideas, you might want to work with different data sets, right? But we are not the data provider, as you can imagine. But here I have one example, which I guess is pretty much affordable for everyone who's in the program. So financial packages, that's the Quant Starts package, which I was searching for. And you have seen there were like 6 hits in the modules in the videos. And I go through here the standard imports. This can be installed or must be installed if you haven't done so via pip install Quant Stats. Then it is usually imported as QS. I said we regularly, usually, or even in general, I can say, work with fixed data sets that you retrieve like here from a server. That's a data set which starts beginning of 2013 and it ends at the end of 2022. 10 years worth of data, right? Here I pick out the picker or the RIC, as it's still called in the Thomson Reuters, in the original Thomson Reuters world or Refinitiv LSEG world. And I pick out one, and here I go with the R. So this is now not about this data, right? Itself. So I could have shown you an example with other data. This is just one of the example data files that we use. But this notebook is about the usage of Quant Stats, right? And there is a submodule called Stats, and we can calculate the Sharpe ratio here for the S&P 500. It's not that high, right? Here, when we extend pandas, we don't even need to go here with qs.stats.sharp. I didn't want to teach, so now I fall into the teaching mode, right? I extend pandas, and then I can simply call .sharp or R-sharp, right? So then we can calculate the compound annual growth rate, the average winner, the average loser here in the form of the log return or the returns, generally speaking. You can calculate the volatility, value at risk, which can also be customized, right? Consecutive wins, 8, the longest streak, consecutive losses, 9, right? This is what you hear in the popular press or Bloomberg TV, Bloomberg Radio. Yeah, we have like the longest winning streak. We have 10 days in a row. Here you see for that time period, 9 days was the longest period for the losses. And then of course you can do plots. Numbers are sometimes a bit boring. Here you see a snapshot with drawdown and also the returns. Only the drawdowns if you are interested in these, or drawdown periods that are visualized here with these light red blocks in the background, a monthly heat map, winner months, loser months. Interesting chart over 10 years for the S&P 500, right? You might now have a look at, I don't know, all the Octobers or seasonal effects, for example, yearly returns. Even on a higher level, you get that visualized, or a full report, which has a ton of numbers here, numbers that we have seen before, but many, many more, like numbers here year to date, the 1 year, 3 year, 5 year annualized returns, etc. All out of the box, just by importing the data, getting the returns. And in many cases, you don't need to get it even, right? Or here, going one step further, I go with the metrics now for Apple and define a benchmark to be the S&P 500. And now you can compare the benchmark, which is the S&P 500, of which Apple is a part of, a constituent, right? And then you can compare here the values. I don't know where these numbers are coming from. This might not be correct, or it does some, I don't know what it does. Here, let me see if this is, it's a little bit strange. Let me, now that I noticed this, PT change, percentage change. Now it looks a little bit better. So I was feeding in, and usually that's not a big deal. I was feeding in the The prices, I changed it to percentage change, and now the numbers look good. Usually it recognizes whether there are prices or not, but here for some reason, maybe there are not the number values or what might ever play a role here. Then you have reports plots. You can then create with a single call, certain types of plots, or here a combination of the performance metrics plus the plots that we've seen before. And this can be done even in a more detailed fashion, right? So a pretty helpful package, and this is part of the financial packages class, which we have added last year, and you find quite a bit more in that class, which might be useful for your endeavors. Now the NLP example, right? Currently, I would say whenever I was asked what might be a weakness of the program, I would say, yeah, natural language processing is not adequately reflected given the importance these days. So this will change from this cohort going onward, where we cover quite a few topics in this regard. So here, this little example is about retrieving text from the internet, and I work here with our CPF page. I retrieve the HTML version of the page, and this is, as you can imagine, filled with a ton of technical stuff like CSS, like JavaScript, which is, if you want to, as a human being, want to understand such a page, is not really relevant, right? So when I pull up this page of our program, this of course has a ton of visual elements, has functionality included, has a video embedded here, right? So that's basically the page, but the text here, when we look at it, we are basically not interested whether the background is blue and the font here is in white, or like about these little pictures here, pictograms, right, etc. So we want to read something like this, and the example here with the Jupyter Notebook is about extracting this. So when I retrieve this page, it has currently, let me check, it has 225K. Most of it irrelevant. And when I say most of it, I clean up now the text. And what remains after the cleanup of the HTML are just like 9K. It's less than 5% of the original file. And when I now have a look at 1,000 to 2,000 in terms of the number of characters, you suddenly can read what is in there. Certificate program in Python for finance, self-paced guided, mean variance, portfolio risk parity, investing option pricing. Now somebody from Python from finance knows what this is all about, right? And I also see here the numbers that are updated on the web page, which haven't been updated on the slide. So I was selling you too little in terms of the number of Jupyter Notebooks and the lines of code. It's actually 85,000 and more lines of Python code and 500 Jupyter Notebooks. So everything else that I had on the slide was a little bit too low. So now we create tokens, tokenization, you probably have heard of, right? And we get rid of the redundant tokens. We only go with the tokens that are longer than 6 characters. That we do is sorting and alphabetical sorting here. And then we end up with, what we could call a vocabulary, right? These are tokens. They would then, for example, in the context of transformers or whatnot, they would get numbers, right? Here I simply go with the words and can generate keywords out of that different ways, but the most interesting is the last one here. You probably have seen this for many statisticians. That's a preferred way of representing text and the frequency, the importance of words in the text. And from our page, you see certificate, learning, finance, trading, training, algorithmic, resource, machine, quant. I think this makes some more sense, Python, right? And the larger the font here for the single words is, the more important in the context of the web page the single word is. And this can be either boiled down to, let's say, just 10 Quant gets bigger. Quant, finance, trading, CPF, Python, algorithmic, online. Makes sense to a large extent. Or you can say, give me 50 or 66 even, right? Then you have also words here like intelligence, paste, award, instruction, right? That now join the other words from before. So pretty decent, and that's yeah, just some basic techniques. Some usually we would say pre-processing, and here a visualization based on a relatively simple importance approach, right? So that little example about natural language processing. In the meantime, let me check for the questions. So yeah, there was a question. One question that I've missed in between was about the chatbot. And as with yeah, ChatGPT, for example, you can also enter in other languages and will answer in then the language. Not in every language, but also in other languages, right? So that's yeah, because we built, of course, on top of the existing technology, and yeah, they are so good these days in terms of translation that this shouldn't come as a big surprise. So let me close these ones so that we have a clear focus. Now, again, a quick run through here with regard to the Onda trading platform. Maybe let me pull up to this and the trade application of Onda here, the web interface. There's also desktop applications. I usually, almost always, I can say, I work with the web interface. It's a typical trading interface where you will, of course, the data is loading now. You see here loading. What we see euro, US dollar, Brent crude oil, Europe 50, and the S&P 500 charts. I can increase this. For example, I can zoom in, I can zoom out, I can, as you can see here, like create simple moving averages. I can add other indicators. And down here, no open trades. That's for the trade side of things. This is the data, the informational side. Let me now execute the code. So first, simple inputs, regular inputs. Now the package TPQOA is used. That's the one where you saw on the screenshot where we're searching for, right? And I get here an overview of the instrument. So when I comment this out, right, Onda has, or O&A as many say, I since the beginning say Onda, but O&A will be another way of pronouncing it. You see here the long list of available instruments on that platform. I'm just showing 4 here for the sake of brevity. And for BTC, USD, right? For Bitcoin, US dollar, I can retrieve, for example, 1-minute bars, 1st of January until the 4th of January. Data info here, 4,300 data points. Here I plotted, there was a large drop here. This is what you want to get correct as an algo trader, right? If stuff is going sideways, usually that's not the thing that brings you fun, right? Meaning profits. Here, this is something you want to get correct. Therefore, momentum strategy, the most simple strategy that we can come up with from a programming point of view. I go with a 60-minute momentum here. Devise a trading strategy. My hit ratio is, let me see, the hit ratio is 2,057 times correct and 2,170 times wrong. So I have just like a hit ratio with my trades here for the backtest of 48%. I do now the vectorized backtesting here to the visualization. And indeed, my simple strategy here goes with the market. You will hear me say so often the market. Usually I don't say the instrument or name the instrument with the market here. And then it's somehow losing, but fortunately it gets the drop here correct, goes short, and here it spikes up and then ends the period, the backtesting period here with an outperformance. That's by no means a strategy that I recommend. I never recommend anything. That's a tactical illustration and a calculation. So here it shows where the trades are placed, long, short, so +1, -1. And speaking of placing trades, I now place trades not for BTC USD, I place trades for Brent crude oil. And again, here, no open trades. Just as a reminder, getting back to the code, I create an order of 100 units. I get back this JSON object with all the details, right? And I see now in my trading app, that's a demo account, I see now the order being placed. That's now an open position. It's a trade that I was placing, and here in the positions part, I see that as well. So we can, for example, have one position, but different trades, orders open, let's say stop loss order or whatnot. But currently, you see there's not that much going on. It's just one trade. Then I sell here. You see that's pretty simple. Here I bought 100. Now I sell 50. I sell 50. Getting back to the trade app. Now it's just 50 long, where we had 100 long before that. Going even a step further, I sell another 50, or I can say here the remaining 50 in the trading app. No open trades. You see this is happening here almost in real time. Let's say that, so when we worked intensively with Wanda, the turnaround time was roughly like 200 milliseconds, maybe, so a fifth of a second roughly. It's not high frequency trading, but I would say for a retail trader, it's relatively fast. And then you get, if you fancy here, details of the single transactions for later usage, right? When you say, well, I want to track all of this, etc. This is easy enough to retrieve. And last but not least, real-time data can also be retrieved. And this is now happening here. You see it's 3:10, so this is a GMT time. I'm in Central European time. So for us, it's 1 hour later than what you see here, right? And you see the bid and the ask prices for the Bitcoin USD on the Bitcoin price, right? This was something that, let's say 15 years ago, basically was only for institutional traders, like even 7 years ago for only a few retail traders. And these days we have come a long way. We get almost professional environments, and by professional I mean institutional, even as retail traders. So last but not least here, the example, this is about EOD, and I said, and EOD is the name of the company, EOD Historical Data, and I said that this requires a subscription. There's also a free tier with limited API calls. But what you can do here, so with regard to Rwanda, you get all the data from Rwanda for free, but only for their products, and not, let's say, for an Apple stock or for the S&P 500 directly, or for an ETF or a bond or an option, right? And this is what you get here. So with a credentials file that you get on their platform, right, I can connect to the data provider. And here what I do, getting adjusted close for multiple stocks. So here I iterate over the stocks: Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Netflix, Meta, Google, Intel, AMD, Nvidia, etc. So mostly tech stocks, right? But also a couple of banks here: Goldman Sachs, Bank of America, JP Morgan, Morgan Stanley. So it's retrieving that data, and this is now the real data. This is not CFD data. This is not data from whatever source. This is the real data now, right? For the stocks, it's just stocks. I could have retrieved data for some other instruments as well. And here I'm plotting just in relative terms the first four to see it more easily: Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Netflix, over that period, right? You see this goes until the last available data point. Here, the last available data point is the given that we are today on the 8th of January and the day has not closed yet in terms of trading for these instruments, is Friday, the closing price that we get here. So 5th of January 2024. Right, we can also retrieve, and here I've commented this out. If you want to like save it, that's easy enough, right? We also get fundamentals data, right? This is now going through all of this. Let me basically execute all these code lines. Where are we? So going through all the instruments. I don't know where is it now. Why did it start from scratch? Sorry, I somehow messed up with my shortcuts here for Jupyter Lab. Getting fundamentals for multiple stocks, same as with price data, fundamentals for a complete index. So let's say for the German DAX index, I'm German based. So this is our lead index here in Germany. It used to be 30 constituents. These days we have 40. So from DAX 30 to 40, here you see now the fundamentals data like EBITDA, ESP profit margin, revenue numbers, etc. Here fundamentals for complete index means that we get for every single constituent now, when I iterate over the constituents, the fundamentals as before. Then available exchanges, they have data for more than 60 exchanges. Here, different examples, so exchange data, it gives you all the exchanges, available tickers for a single exchange. You can also search for a symbol and where Tesla might be traded, economic calendar, historical splits and dividends, historical tick data. So this all takes a while because, yeah, that's in part, these are large data sets like the tick data set here for Apple. I have adjusted it to last Friday, the last trading session. That is available in full. Here, get tick data is only for US exchanges available. And this data set now alone has 50 megabytes for one trading day. So 682,000 tick data points for Apple on the last trading day, meaning last Friday, 5th of January 2024. Here we see the head, also technical indicators. This is, I would say, a nice feature, but not required because the calculation of simple moving averages, etc., that's pretty straightforward. But nevertheless, you can use the convenience functions here, then do some plotting or some live data here. A crypto data stream for ETH is opened, ETH in USD, and the data is stored here in an attribute. And if you like, you can stream this all day long and collect all the tick data points. At a certain point, you want to close it. So this again is subscription. The complete package that they offer is relatively cheap still. I would say it's like 80 euro, I guess. So before I say something wrong, I can quickly show you this as an additional reminder that this is the only part that I was showing that might require, if you're interested, a subscription. Right here in pricing, you see the all-in-one, yeah, it's 80 euro. It should be 80 US as well, right? You can also pay yearly, then the price drops accordingly to 66, and you get a ton. Like I haven't shown you government bonds data, corporate bonds. I haven't shown you ETF data, etc. So there is much more here to retrieve than I was showing, and the all-in-one package, I think that's still reasonable. Even I would say, let's say for academic institution, for research purposes, or the ambitious retail trader, right? I have no affiliation with them, so I don't want to sell it. But when you compare these subscriptions, and many of you might be working for large institutions, and you might have access, let's say, to a Bloomberg terminal or to a Refinitiv Workspace or to a Dow Jones terminal, then you know that these subscriptions, they might easily go into the thousands per month per seat, and compare this now to the 800 per year for the full package of EOD, that's a good deal. Therefore, that's the only reason why I'm mentioning it. Just recently, somebody asked me if which data source do you use? I said, well, this is what I would recommend because value for money is good. And the person said, I don't know why I didn't came across that. I now since month am looking for an appropriate data API which comes at a reasonable price. And I said, yeah, that's the reason why I recommend it without being affiliated with them or whatever, right? Therefore, yeah, have a look at it, decide for yourself if this is of interest at all to you. So now coming to the final part here, the study plans. With the weekly emails, you always get the link to the study plan, which is updated. You see here in the first week, this is highlighted. Next week, this row will be highlighted here also with the live sessions, among others, obviously here the introduction and overview session, 8th of January 24. This is just now our session, right? In the study plan, there might be changes within the week, but usually are updated once a week when we send out the invites to the live sessions. As I was saying before, if you can't do anything else due to time constraints or whatnot, focus on finance with Python, plus maybe financial data science. And if you fancy, it never hurts to get started early enough with the tools and skills part. That's also important. For those of you who might be more inclined to study over the course of 12 months, here is the 12-month plan, which includes more like math basics, which is not present in the other program where it is optional, additional. But even this one here, which has much more from the program over the course of 3 trimesters, right, does not have all the classes that we have. Right? Then the guiding principles. I have here 4 of them. So Python first. Pretty regularly, I get emails that don't ask me any question about Python, coding, programming, software development, Linux command, I don't know, whatever I should mention here. People ask me, do you cover this type of algorithmic trading strategy in detail? And if so, what sub-variants do you cover? So one thing I want to make clear, we cover a ton of finance stuff in our program. That's a given. But it is Python first, right? It's not a finance class or program where we do finance and a bit of program. It's the other way around. So the Python, the coding and implementation side is what comes first. So it's rather than theory or practical consideration, it is about getting up to speed with coding and doing the implementation of an algorithm or whatever, right? What we present is usually specific. So here again, we don't have a research approach. So this was about the teaching side, what we focus on. And here we don't have like a research approach where you get started reading a paper after the abstract and the introduction, here a literature overview. This is also not the style, right? We are not saying, well, this is now our topic, and first we go through 200 papers that have been written about this topic, but they are basically not relevant to what we are going to do. So we skip that part for the sake of efficiency and due to the time constraints. So algorithms used, examples shown, are specific in nature and not meant to provide an exhaustive overview. It's not research. We are not going through every detail that somehow might be related to what we do. Reproducible, this is about the data. As I was saying before, no need for financial data API apart from Wonder, to which you get free access, right? We provide all the data files that you need in order to reproduce the results. Last but not least, it is practical. So to acquire coding and other practical skills, that's the main goal. Like saying, I want to learn to swim, you can read a book about swimming, you can go to the swimming hall and watch other people swim, but there comes the day where you need to get into the water and you need to start swimming. The same holds true for driving a car or playing the piano. These are all skills, and skills can only be acquired by doing it. Now you might say, well, chess is different. Yeah, chess has something to do with knowledge only, but playing a game of chess over the course of 3 hours and focusing and doing all the right things is also a skill, right? So it's all about acquiring skills, and we hope to make this as efficient as possible. And in this context, that's a good bridge actually, a good segue into the next topic here. We have recently added a ton of quizzes and exercises. I don't think that so far a single delegate has gone through all the quizzes and all the exercises, right? We have focused here not that much on the financial side, but rather on the programming side, because it lends itself a bit better. And I think this is where most of you will benefit most from having the questions. So the most simple format is 10 yes and no questions here, for example, or multiple choice questions. Here, for example, is the primary distinction between list and tuple that the former is mutable, can be changed after creation, while the later is immutable. Yeah, that's here a yes as an answer, right? But when you get started first with list and tuple, I think these are primarily meant as review questions, and these are more like exam style, right? For example, here, how can you create a 2 times 2 identity matrix in NumPy? NumPy identity 2, NumPy I 2, 2, both A and B, or NumPy zeros 2 and 2. So it is C here in this context, just for one reason, because for zeros you need to provide a shape and not 2, 2. There are some things that are really subtle, others not so, like that one. Which function is used to compute the inverse of a matrix? I mean, this, I guess it's obvious, right? NumPy .inv, yeah, maybe here inv, we can exclude maybe flip, reverse. So you should try it for yourself. They are not necessarily related to single modules, right? They are just like, once you have reached a certain level, you should get to the different topics. So here we have a topical structure, like about data structures in Python. Data structures are covered in different classes: mathematics basics, in Python for finance basics, in Python for finance key skills, in financial data science, etc. So here you find not now a structure according to the classes, but rather about this topic. This gives you another like cross-sectional view on the topics that are covered in the program. And we then have also exercises. Here's a set of more advanced exercises about control structures with hint, right? So the first one, use nested for loops to print a pyramid pattern. Think about the relation between rows and spaces, stars, or using maybe the last one again about for loop. You see here control structure for, while, if, elif, else, for. Using a for loop, find and print all prime numbers up to 100. Use another loop for checking divisibility. So this is, for example, something that you find in the program. Maybe then it is your task here to recall what was done there. But for this one and that one, for example, you won't find any solution directly in the program that you can translate one-to-one. So a ton of these exercises, quizzes, yes and no question, multiple choice questions are now available. Again, more in the cross-sectional sense and not class by class or module by module. So the user forum, here you see 2 screenshots. The most active one here, Python for algorithmic trading, but there are more, right, on the Quant platform. Getting back to, you can directly jump, or on the dashboard you find it as well. Now I go via the main menu to the user forum. You see here a list of the latest forum posts. Sometimes they are technical in nature, meaning like on the Quant platform, I want to do X, Y, that, but I'm not able to do so. Or here, I want to build a Docker container. It doesn't work because the file X, Y, that, right? Cannot access JupyterLab. This is something when, for example, on the Quant platform, there are also technical issues, right? Even with my car, this morning I was at the car shop because there was an issue. It's now pretty cold here, and the car that I use to drive around my 3 dogs, I wasn't able to start it. So, and the same holds true here for the Quant platform. I would never negate that we have issues here. So there are of course issues here and there, but we always try to resolve them as quick as possible. Usually during our German business hours, this is a matter of minutes or a few hours. Sometimes overnight it might be a bit more difficult. So here we are realistic. And again, you can now, for example, click on a header, and then you see long traceback and an answer that I've given. Sometimes it's longer threads, sometimes it's short, sometimes more involved, and sometimes less so, right? Getting back to the boards. Here, for example, when I say NumPy, like what I was searching before, this will give now just the search results for NumPy. This time it is in the user forum, right? That's the difference. So topic error while importing TS tables, or whatever might be the topic. Again, NumPy is so omnipresent that it will get many, many hits, not only in the user forum, but in the other areas as well, as we have seen already before, right? You can search. So usually I recommend that you first do a search and then do a post, because often you will find the answer, or you go now to the new search capability and then you are good to go. Let me close that one. We don't need this anymore. Yeah, that much about the user forum. Discord server, yeah, here, if you like, is the place for everything else. I like to say this is for organizational and general questions. Usually I do once a week or every other week, I do live sessions where I sit in front of the Discord server and you can bombard me with your questions, right? But you can, of course, post here every time, anytime, right? And I will get back as soon as I notice it and as soon as I can. So this is like the chat format. We don't have a chat on the Quant platform. That's, if you like, the chat version of our Quant platform, where we, or the user forum, I'd rather say, not the Quant platform, the user forum, where we can interact both asynchronously and synchronously during our live Q&A sessions. Just make sure that you register and be ready with your questions when we have these sessions scheduled. Final project. I'm not going into details. I have just included it here because I know that some of you, many in the past at least, have questions about the final project. Oh, this big thing at the very end of the program. My major message is, don't worry even a bit about the final project. It will come early enough, but I have provided you with the link here to the requirements file. So that's your major source, with any other link that might be of importance in this context. Therefore, I'm not going into the details. My message is, don't worry about that. I have here open book. You can read what this is all about, but now focus on the study side of things, and later on you can think about a topic and can get started with the final project. For those of you who haven't followed us, or somebody who wants to maybe forward information about our program, here's a link to the brochure, which I would say is the most concise version that we come up with. It's basically 2 pages with a rough overview, a few testimonials, and a little bit of background about the program. But this now, what we have done today was, I would say, a broader and a more in-depth overview. As I was saying before, this video will be uploaded to the Quant platform as well as to the YouTube channel a little bit later. So this is also something that, if you fancy, you can forward this to others, to colleagues, friends, or whoever you think might be grateful for that. So there is one more question, at least one is open. Yeah, there's somebody saying that there is quite a bit of overlap between the classes. Yeah, I'm a big believer in repetition, and this is from experience. So I try, when we, for example, cover similar topics in another context, to provide a different angle, a different motivation, or different use cases for the single topics. If you feel that you come across a module that might be from your point of view, or given your background, of course, we cannot know every single background and can custom tailor it, not yet, at least, to everybody who's studying with us. Therefore, if you come across something where you say, well, I know this already, yeah, then feel free to skip it, right? Maybe make a note and say, well, I left off here. This seems to be repetitive to what we've had before. And I agree, that's true. For some classes, this is indeed true. For others, for sure not, right? Let's think of algorithmic trading. Let's think of computational finance or the asset management part. Maybe there's an overlap with other classes of 10%. With certain classes like the basics classes, where we focus again and again in depth on the basics, indeed, there might be an overlap in part or with regard to certain modules of 20, 30%, sometimes maybe even 50%, right? If you say where there is an obvious supersede with regard to one class over the other, yeah, for example, Python for Finance Basics and Python for Finance Key Skills, major difference is the number of modules. But of course, when we have 35 modules instead of just 14, you can imagine that we cover more details in the Python for Finance Basics class with 35 modules, and that probably the Python for Finance Key Skills is yet another gist of what is covered in the other classes. That's for sure, but usually I would say you might recognize this by the names, right? So when the names are similar, there might be might be quite a bit of overlap. For example, also the AI in finance, the classes, the two that we have, the one is based on a book. This is in and of itself not redundant, but there are certain redundancies with the other AI in finance class. But the other AI in finance class has a stronger focus on developing, for example, neural networks from scratch, which is not covered in the other class. So from my experience, repetition doesn't hurt. If you want to skip something, feel free to do so. It's basically apart from what is in the study plan. And even there, certain things are marked optional. There are no requirements, right? Yeah, with regard to studying the resources on a weekly basis, this is also, from my experience, something that people prefer to do in different ways. So the question is, should the book be read first and then the video be watched and then the code be executed, be played around with? I could imagine to do it exactly the opposite. First have a look at the code, go through it, see it, then watch the video and then go to the book. This is, I would say, up to personal preference. I have seen and learned from many over the past years that indeed there are different tastes and different approaches, and everybody might have at least slightly different ways of going forward faster and more efficiently. So that's the only thing that I can say. I think it doesn't hurt if you do it not exactly in a certain sequence, for sure not. I would see it like playing the piano, right? You play up and down. You can mix it up, you can go back and forth, you can revisit it. We also have in the past, upon request, included speed adjustments for the video player. So if you want to see it 2 times the original speed, feel free to do so. I listen usually to podcasts with 1.5 and 2.0 times the original speed, but this depends on the people and how they speak. So I consider myself a little bit on the faster speaking side, so 2 times might be a bit fast, but if you want to review something in half the time, you can go with 2 times the original speed. The message here again is you have all the flexibility. I hope you find your way. We try to support you on whatever way, whatever approach you choose in order to go with us through the next 16 weeks in the CPF program. Yeah, having said that, I wish you all the best, a great start and a particular steep learning curve, and of course a lot of fun in mastering the Python for Finance skills in the different areas. I'm pretty sure you will benefit a lot, and of course I want to hear about your experience and how you can leverage what you learn in the program in practice. In that sense, have a good time, take care, see you in the next session. Bye-bye.